Hello everyone. This is TEDxKenyalang. Who knows what Kenyalang means? It means hornbill. We're in Sarawak, the land of the hornbill. And who agrees with me that Sarawak's a pretty special place? My friend Colin, who could live in London, Wellington, or Sydney, chooses to live in Sarawak because he says there's no other place in the world where there's such a diversity of people who live in such a peaceful ambience. And that's no small achievement, given the destructiveness and divisiveness and violence of the world beyond our shores. So what makes Sarawak special? It's us, the people. And I include myself in that. I'm not what you see. You look at me, you see a tall, white lady, size 16, with a long nose. But half of me is Italian, and half of me is English. And my heart is truly Sarawakian. I'm rather mixed up, you see, but being mixed up is a source of strength and many insights, as I'll share with you later on. I've been taking a lifetime to understand what it is that makes Sarawak tick. And I'm going to share with you a secret today. I've discovered intangible, invisible threads that link us all together to make community. And I'm going to give you two examples. Let's go to Chinatown for the first example. This was the Intercultural Mooncake Festival, held in Carpenter Street. It was 2 months ago. Did anyone go? So, the whole of Carpenter Street became open, and people came from all about. The Bidayu came from the mountains around. The Malays came from across river, and the Iban came from the outlying kampongs. And then there were all kinds of people that joined the party. People left their cars and their computers to enjoy the celebration. We took our lanterns and looked up at the full moon. And we enjoyed the rhythm of the lion dances. And we could hear the harmonies of the Malay drums who would come every year from a kampong on the coast. We could also hear the plaintive melodies of the Borneo lute, the sape, with their songs from far upriver. And then there were the harmonies on the 5-footway of the Chinese orchestra. So it was a wonderful celebration of a mixture of music and entertainment. But not just that, there was the food. You could smell the aroma of the mouth-watering satay as it cooked, barbecued. You could taste the spiciness of the Sarawak laksa, or the kolo mee. And then there were the mooncakes. It was all nyaman. The downside is, it's pretty difficult to diet in Sarawak. But it was the mooncakes that really made the festival, because they had invisible threads that linked us with the legends of ancient China, the traditions and customs of long ago. And these invisible threads interwove and matted together the Chinese community in Chinatown. And those of us outside had shared experience and histories of these festivals. And we came having collected our invisible threads, and we interwove them with the community. The newspapers had a field day for this event. They talked about unity and harmony and diversity. The cynics thought differently in the coffee shops and social media. They said all this was a show for the tourism industry, or it was fodder for the politicians. But I don't agree with this. I believe these invisible threads are much more resilient and go much deeper. And I'm going to take you on a long journey. We're going to Long Pulwan, a longhouse on the edge of the Kalabit Highlands. It's close to Indonesia. It's very remote. It's where my husband comes from. What can we see here? It's a place where elders sit by the fire and knowledge is transmitted from one generation to the next, grandfather to grandson. In the stories that are told are the invisible threads about knowledge of land, of resources, of territory, of customs and traditions. And these are what hold the communities together. I was told of a very special story, and I'm going to share some of it with you today. The story introduced me to a new idea. The idea is Lun Tau in Kalabit. Lun Tau. It means our people. Our people were the ancestors of the community that lives in the longhouse today. They're very mixed. They're Kalabit, Saban, and Ngorek. And our people were led in migrations by a tall, strong, invincible leader called Talinsan. He could deflect spears from enemies just by flexing his muscles. And he led our people across river systems, down valleys, to a place that was very safe, protected by rapids in the river. And it was at this place that today we can still see signs of Talinsan and the people he gathered with him in the stone graves and monuments on the river system. It was this place, though, that they experienced the threat of their enemies. What to do? What could they do? Talinsan said, we have to split up. Those of us who are good at climbing can go up into the hills. And those of us who are good at going by boat can go down river. And this is what they did. They had to split up and form two separate communities. And it is there where they lived and prospered. Why is this story told? This story is told today because in the telling of the story, community is made. We hear about our people, and our people become generated in the minds of the listeners. People have kin, upriver and downriver, to count on for festivals and weddings and funerals. This idea of being together as our people was very important for survival in the forest. Our people intermarried and adopted children and made blood brothers. They formed large, heterogeneous, mixed communities for defense because it was very important in the rainforest. Imagine if you wanted to cut down a big tree. How many men would you need? 3? 5? No. 10, at least 10 men were needed to cut down a tree, to create longhouses or boats or fireplaces. Then you needed to clear land for farming. You needed people to help you sow your paddy, plant your paddy, weed your paddy, and harvest. How did you do it? You work on my fields, I work on yours. This is the great Malaysian spirit of cooperative labor called gotong royong. And this was the essence of how our people lived. But what it was that kept them together were invisible threads. The invisible threads were the shared values. These shared values meant working hard, so you had lots of paddy for festivals, for sharing, for being generous. At all costs, it was important to keep the community together. So you rode on consensus, you supported your leaders, and at all costs, you avoided conflict. I learnt about avoiding conflict very early on in my marriage. I hinted I was married to a Kalabit. Well, we'd been married a few months, the honeymoon was over, and I was learning new things about my husband every day, and having to adjust. One of these was that he has a Malaysian idea of time that is very fluid and flexible. And I was conditioned with a British sense of time that goes by the clock and Big Ben. Ding dong, ding dong. So one evening it was really important that he came home by 6 o'clock because we had to go to the airport to meet my family who were just arriving. So I told him in the morning, please be back by 6 so we get there on time. 6 o'clock came and I was waiting and waiting. My stomach was churning and I was getting ready for a really good Italian fight. So when my husband came in at 6:20, what did I do? I started yelling at him. And what did my husband do? Did he yell back? Did he throw shoes at me? No. He laughed. And what did I do? I felt cheated. I laughed back. And we've been laughing ever since. To get back to this idea about our people. Our people was a very fluid, inclusive idea of identity. I've given you an example of it as it's used in our longhouse in a historical setting. The Kalabit still use it today. But this inclusive idea of identity that accommodates mixed communities is very different to the way we think of ourselves. Now, we've inherited from the colonial administrators a very fixed way of defining people according to ethnicity based on difference. When this idea was being introduced by the colonial administrators, they did it in order to classify and know the population, and to control them, of course. But Tom Harrison, the curator at the time, protested vehemently. He said, people cannot think of themselves as named, static, classified groups. And a lot of us who are mixed also have the same feeling. I have a young cousin, Julie. Her father is Iban, her mother is Bidayu, and then she has a stepmother who's Chinese. When people ask her, what is she doesn't know. She says she's not Iban, she's not Bidayu, she's not Chinese. She's Sarawakian. And then she's Malaysian. So when she has to fill in a form and tick a box saying ethnicity, she ticks 3 boxes just to protest. If you, like me, have one parent who speaks one language and one parent who speaks another, who have grandparents who worship in different places, who have cousins who celebrate different festivals, don't feel muddled. There is tremendous hope because you have a mixed heritage of rich traditions to draw invisible threads to build more community. Those invisible threads, remember, are based on generosity, on inclusiveness, on tradition and custom, on shared experiences, like we saw in the Mooncake Festival. And this is what makes Sarawak, at its very best, special. We in this room today are experiencing lots of people's testimonies. We're living shared experience. There are many invisible threads being generated in this room. Our challenges today is not to lose those invisible threads, but to gather them. And this will be TEDx at its very best.